All right, and we are back for part two. This is Adam Kaplan talking to Colin Hendershot. We are breaking down our top 24 films of 2024. This is the end game, our 1 through 10. Before we get into that, Colin, first of all, how's it going?
Uh, a lot of time's passed since we left off, but I'm good. I'm got my nightcap going, so I'm ready to rock.
Nice. Before we get into the very best films of 2024, according to us, do you have the worst film of the year? A film that you absolutely hated or was just complete trash? And I
Hmm.
can go first if you want to think about it.
Yeah, go ahead and go first.
All right. My worst film of the year is Madam Web. Um, the first and foremost thing, and normally I don't care about like ADR, but this film had the absolute worst ADR. The heavy in this movie, clearly you never see his lips moving. It was all done in post, and it's so obvious that it's like just poor, straight up like bad filmmaking. Like I can forgive like superhero movies for, a lot of things because I get
Hmm.
what they're going for. But when you're just like this trash garbage filmmaking, it you're already dinged. It's a Spider-Man movie without mentioning Spider-Man. Um the plot is like so inessential. Like I get inherently that all movies, especially superhero movies, are just like money grabs, but Sony just being like not like being so transparent with like this movie solely exists for them to try to make money and for them to capitalize on like to keep the Spider-Man intellectual property rights by making these like garbage movies. And I heard Craven the Hunter wasn't like that much better. I just didn't see that. Madam Web because it came out early in the year, like I think immediately went to Netflix and it got shit on at the time. And to me, it's like rightfully so. I think that movie sucks.
Yeah, it. I mean, everything you said is completely correct. It was not great shakes. Um, I didn't have as much fun crapping on Madam Web just because I it was not good, but and frankly, they what they were going for with it, I was like, this is just the complete wrong story to begin with. Like you're trying to tell this, but
Yeah.
like before all of them actually become like the superhero versions of themselves. So it's like one huge origin story, but it's like not even like the interesting part of the origin. And then add to that just like the comically bad ADR on the bad guy there. Like it was just extremely dumb. Yeah. Um so uh stuff that I the, if I was gonna land on one thing, it might I'm gonna shout out Joker 2, um, because frankly, I'm not even a huge fan of the first one, and
I'm not
this
either.
and the second one, I'm like, okay, I appreciate the big swing, but in a weird way, I actually should like Joker 2 because it just totally deconstructs the first one and it kind of actually tries to address everything that I did not like about the first one, but in the process, it just manages to not be a movie that stands on its own 2 feet, and the entire value of it is like it's a Joker and Harley Quinn musical, and it just does not rise to the occasion of any of that. It's a total waste of Lady Gaga. Um, but that honestly, that movie's easy to hate on. Um,
Yeah,
if
I
I
mean,
was
so is
gonna,
Madam Web.
right, if I was gonna say I'll shout out something as that I'll say this might not be the worst movie I saw this year, but it's the movie that I saw that I was just what are we doing here? So you and I talked about A Complete Unknown, and
Right.
I was
Privately.
prepared to go in and just like say this movie sucks. It does all right. It's not like amazing, but it does like a good enough job like reaching the ceiling of what like this can be. At the other end of that spectrum is Bob Marley One Love.
Yeah, I remember that movie coming out. It looked bad.
Well, so that's the thing, is that they like got me in that, because I have been for years, I had been out on musical biopics. Like,
Right.
it doesn't matter what artist it is, it doesn't matter how incredible their life story is, it's going to turn into the same movie with the same beats and just be utterly uninteresting. No matter how actually interesting their life is, it just, like, nothing's happening. And incredibly, they managed that with Bob Marley. One of the most incredible life stories that you will see, so many interesting things about him as a person, what he believed in, everything that made him just the icon of music and of peace that he was, be him abstaining from from medical attention, like everything that creates the Bob Marley mythos is just dumbed down to like reggae singer like creates one of his albums. And I'm just like, oh man, like how do you mess this up? And it also does something that I've grown to really hate, which is that like it's a movie about a real person, and it takes like a snapshot of their life, which I actually like when movies do that. But what pisses me off a lot is when it's like a snapshot of like the exact wrong time, and you think that Bob Marley movie is leading up to the the fabled concert that he does in Africa, because he's always talking about like, oh, I want to go to Africa, I want to go to Africa, I want to go to
Right.
Africa. And but then it never shows that, and like that's like in the end text scroll, and I'm like, where's that? Like get out of here, man. So like yeah, so that's the one that jumps out at me as just like ugh, like boils my blood.
All right. It sounds like I made the right choice by skipping it. All right. So after
Yeah.
talking about the worst films of 2024, let's talk about the very best. We talked about 11 through 24 going on in journey of the 24 best films of 2024. But now we're in the final stretch, the top 10. Colin, what's the 10th best film according to you of 2024?
So my number 10, we can I'll make quick work of it because it's already come up here, but my number 10 is Furiosa. So uh it's not as high as I would have imagined it would have ended up like coming in, because I mentioned before on the earlier stream, like if I was ranking top 10 trailers, the second trailer for Furiosa is just so just like electrifying. The one uh where it busts out like the riff on the the Fury Road theme, and it brings back like the Remember Me that she does, and like it shows Dementis looking up at her on top of the hill. Like that is such an awesome fucking trailer, man. And the movie, like it is still cracked my top 10, but like it's, you feel the length a little bit in it, but like, and the digitization of it versus practical compared to Fury Road, like it's it's hard not to take it down a peg just compared to Fury Road, because Fury Road is so amazingly paced, and it is just a 2 hour chase movie that just never lets you go. And so those aspects, like I have to try hard not to like take Furiosa down a peg because of comparing it to Fury Road, because the characters in Furiosa are great. Like it is just like dark and twisted in so many ways. Like especially when Dementis and Furiosa are in front of the Citadel, and like he saves her from getting like dragged down by the cannibals and stuff.
Yeah.
Like some of that stuff in there is just gnarly. But and the set pieces like are still amazing, even though like so much of it just like doesn't look as good. It doesn't look as like everybody's got sand all the way up their ass like the like Fury Road does. But especially that opening chapter where like her mom's chasing her down, going back to like all of that stuff. Oh, it's just so good. It's so just like you're like glued to it. It's awesome. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my number 10.
I'll be very curious to see what the legacy of Furiosa is,
Hmm.
because it obviously like famously bombed at the box office. It didn't do as well, especially considering how much it cost to make this movie. Like, unfortunately, probably like outside of the how much little money it made relative to cost, it's George Miller, the director's age is getting up there. So this probably will be the last Mad Max movie, at least from George Miller's vision. And I do feel like, because after that initial negative reaction, there's like a quiet groundswell of like people like you, and to a lesser extent me, like, man, this movie is really good.
Yeah,
And it's just like maybe not Fury Road, and that's okay,
right.
but it's really good in its own right. And so I really think in 10 years, like, this movie's gonna get reclaimed. Like, this movie's actually great. You just need to watch it. And
Yeah,
I feel like we're already kind of seeing that. Um, yeah, great choice. Like I said, I love the movie not as much as you, but definitely recommend Furiosa.
yeah. I mean, it's 10 on my list, and like and
Yeah.
as I was saying before too, like like my top like 10 through 15, like it's a murderer's row there of stuff that I'm just like, what's gonna fall here, so but
Uh,
yeah, your
speaking
number 10.
of speaking of elderly directors, I believe the director of my number 10 film was 93 or 94 when he made this movie, or that's how old he is
Mm,
now. Good old non-generian Clint Eastwood and Juror Number Two. A film that, man, really, it is a Warner Brothers film, which is run by David Zaslav, just like famously, just like purposefully, I feels like bungled the marketing, like claims like, oh, this was meant to be on Max, but out of respect to Clint, like, we'll put it in theaters, but like didn't give it any marketing. Um, and there's like a right wingness to Clint's movies that I don't always like, and some of them, like American Sniper.
hmm.
But Clint does have this thing where he's like, fuck institutions, like with Richard Jewell, that I actually can get behind. And combine that ethos with like a straightforward legal drama, which is just feed it straight into my veins. I just, because I'm an attorney by trade. I went to law school. I absolutely love legal dramas. And the fact that this is a legal drama with Clint Eastwood's like hatred of institutions sprinkled on top of it, I'm like, this movie's awesome. Like, I get it. Again, and there's just like in today's economic movie climate that not everything, as much as you and I are advocates for, like, should go into the big screen. But it's like to purposefully fuck this up, it just feels like hurtful, especially considering this might be Clint Eastwood's last film. And I don't think it got a single Oscar nomination, but I don't, whether it didn't deserve it or not, I felt like it should have at least been in consideration. Again, another fail by Warner Brothers, but especially like, a lot of movies on this list, especially my list in particular. I think Fall Guy feels like a 90s movie.
Hmm.
Twisters is literally a remake of a 90s movie. And this just feels like it's not necessarily Grisham-esque, but like we used to make, like, damn it, we used to be a country. We used to make legal dramas,
Yeah, man.
and they don't need to be Netflix. Like, as much as I love Presumed Innocent, like, you can make legal movies. And if that's your thing, check out Juror Number Two. It's on Max now, and I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, I got to go out to see Juror Number Two. I was like you, I was looking for it, and I was just like, man, because I'm a huge sucker for legal dramas too. Like A Few Good Men Hive is right here. Uh,
Absolutely.
I and I like Clint's like last like decade or so of movies has like been hit and miss with me. The
Yeah,
Mule,
for sure.
I was just like on the Mule. But I really enjoyed Juror number two. The uh I didn't love it, but it's just again like so I said this before, high floor of just like entertainment value. Uh like are we talking spoilers here? We can go ahead and give a spoiler warning.
Uh, let's
Let's hold off.
let's not. Let's hold off to
Okay.
the end if you want to
Well,
talk
so
about
what
it.
I'll
But
say is this. I very, very much enjoyed the evolution of of
the
rooting interest over the
like
course of the plot,
like
especially in the third act.
the relationship between Nicolas Holt's characters and Tony Collette's character, I think we can say that.
Yeah. Like the way that that starts to play out just really held me held my interest. And it tries pretty hard to be grounded. Even though there are some ways that it's a little just like okay, I feel like this would not be allowed to continue. But every good like entertaining legal drama has a sense of that, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I in an effort to not have like a just as long list of honorable mentions, I did not include juror number two. But yeah, juror number two, support movie theaters. Clint Eastwood, Deserve Better from Warner Brothers, and it's just a rock solid movie.
All right. What is your number 9?
My number nine is Wicked. So
Wow. Speak on
uh
it.
yeah, so uh what I'll say is this. Wicked is extremely important to me and my wife. We like in some ways we formed our relationship well before we were married around it. You could call it our first date, which sounds kind of funny for a first date, but like
Man, early in my relationship, I took my wife to see the Wicked musical too when it came to Chicago. It's a great musical.
and we have since seen it. We've seen it separately. We've each seen it like 8 times. We've seen it together 4 times. Like it's just a huge part of us. Uh, and you know, she separately, and I keep on joking about this, how like since she's loved Wicked for years and years, but uh, separately she loves Bridgerton, and so Jonathan Bailey's on there, so it's like that was like an added layer because she's like in love with him, and like the songs are amazing, the performances are amazing. The shocking part that you did not get from the trailers is that the production design is actually like great, and it you like sneakily don't realize it, like because the trailers look just like a washed out CGI mess, but then you watch the movie and it's just like wow, they actually built a ton of this. Like so it's just as somebody who loves the musical and was looking forward to this being a movie forever, I was not disappointed and just watched it. I've seen it twice. My wife's seen it 3 times. It and yeah, it's just a long time coming, and it was worth it.
There's a great YouTube series called Notes on a Scene. I think it's either like Vanity Fair or Esquire. I can't remember the magazine that does this, but they had the who directed Wicked? Justin Chu?
John M. Chu.
John M. Chu. They had him and Bailey do the Bailey scene that has like the whirling
Yeah,
like Inception style, like them like going and like explaining like this was a real set, and like that scene I thought was done like so exceptionally well. Like
yeah,
it purposely has like Inception vibes of the spinning, rotating
yeah,
room. I thought their explanation of how they shot that scene was like really well done. It's to its credit, it I think accomplishes what it meant to accomplish, right? Like if you're not a Broadway fan, then you were never going to be into this to begin with. My wife, it's absolutely her favorite movie. She'll never like admit it's like whenever I say, "What's your favorite movie?" Rank stuff for me. She'll like never do it, but she absolutely loves Wicked. Like it sounds like you and your wife do. There was we saw it opening day in the theater, and like a week later, she went with her girlfriends to see it. So I think for like what it really is excellent. And I also think like I like Wicked. I don't love it, but to its credit, even though it's like 2.5 hours long, I was never like looking at my watch. I was never like
Right.
bored by it. I was always entertained by it. So it's not in my top 24 because it's just like ultimately not the type of movie that I vibe with. But I think to what you're kind of getting at is like there's a reason that this was like a huge phenomenon and this has made a buttload of money
Yeah.
because I think John M. Chu is like real like I don't mean this pejoratively. He's a professional director and like really knows what he's doing with this stuff
Yeah.
and really did a good job. And
Big time.
talk about the like Ariana Grande, like despite even if you don't like this, absolutely killed it. Like Cynthia Erivo,
I hope
I've
she
heard,
wins the Oscar. Like, I'm just
yeah,
gonna say that.
she's definitely going to lose to another musical that's far inferior in that category. But Ariana Grande, absolutely like. I get the criticisms for Cynthia Erivo. I didn't have a problem, but like Ariana Grande to me was like a standout performance in that
Hmm.
movie. Like legit great, legit. Like when people saw it, it's like, oh yeah, she's getting an Oscar nomination. It's like I get it. I thought her comedic timing was impeccable.
Yeah.
Um, number 9 for me, and number both 9 and 8 for me is basically shot like an action film of historical events that take place in a short period of time. And for me, number 9 is September 5, which is behind the scenes of ABC's broadcasting of the Munich terrorist attacks um, at the Munich Olympics. You know, if you saw, I said Munich a bunch of times, but if you saw Steven Spielberg's Munich, then also if you know history, you know the event, but like seeing it from the perspective of an behind the scenes, I just thought, and it's like I was reading some criticism, and I just like they were like we're mad at the scope, and to me that's its best feature. It's like a brisk, like barely an hour and a half, and its sole focus is basically on John Magaro, his character like running the show of like being in Germany behind the scenes and like what it takes to like they weren't even the news, they were the sports section and like but they were so close to it. They're like it's him and Peter Sarsgaard. You know, Peter Sarsgaard's like top billed, but it's really John Magaro's film. A really great indie actor from past lives. He's in First Cow.
Hmm.
I bet you if you saw him, you recognize him. It's his film. I used to call him knockoff Miles Teller, but I think that's now too mean. I think he's now clearly John Magaro, especially after September 5. Um, but again, just like this narrow scope, and it's basically shot and edited like an action movie, but it's just like dudes in rooms talking about journalistic ethics. I found absolutely fascinating. The editing is like really the key to this movie, and it worked on me. It has a couple of like I think it has a screenplay Oscar nod. It definitely did decently well at the Golden Globes too. It's gotten a little bit of respect from award season. And to me, I think it deserves more. I just thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, this one's it's on my list. I haven't been able to get to it. It's still kicking around in theaters, but yeah, we'll see what I'm able to do with it. But um uh I will say this though, John Magaro, what I like to call him is White Gabriel Luna. He
Yeah, I think we need to start putting more respect on this. He's now like killing it. He needs
yeah,
to get more leading roles.
I like him. He was excellent in Past Lives, which I loved Past Lives last year. And he was just like the unsung hero of that, just like the like what he added to that role, like which should have been just like the most hated person in the movie, and like
He was
he had
basically the nothing girlfriend part
right
and brought like
right
real pathos to it.
Yeah, like yeah. So he's like You're right. You're absolutely right. He deserves to like be on the up and up. And so yeah, I do want to see September 5 for him for sure.
All right. What is your number 8?
My number 8. So this is the most recent addition to my list. Uh, this is a movie that I watched today. Uh,
Ooh.
and it is The Seed of the Sacred Fig.
Ooh, this is was India selection for
Uh,
the
Germany.
Germany, Germany.
But that is part of the interesting story because this movie was filmed in secret in Iran in violation of their censorship laws.
Ooh,
It is entirely spoken in Farsi, which I believe is their language there, or
major
maybe
language
considered
in that area.
Persian. I'm not sure what it's considered. Um, but the director, as he was in post production, was sentenced to 8 years in jail and had to flee Iran. Uh, and post production was completed in Germany, which is why it's their official entry to the international
Gotcha.
uh, award for the Academy.
It got a
Um,
nomination, did it not?
it is, yeah. It's nominated for best international film. Um, so part of the reason that is like cracking my top 10 is because of what it went through to get made. And you get a very, very real sense of like the guerrilla-ness of it as you're watching it. And just to give you a very, very high level idea, it's about a guy who works for the government in the I guess the state government in Tehran, and he becomes an investigator judge, which is basically somebody who's handling all of the cases of not all of the cases, but like cases of civil unrest, because there was a true life uh, death that happened at the hands of the police of a woman, and the police claimed that she had a stroke,
Mm.
and when in reality people suspected and believed that she died from wounds that she received at the hands of the police. And so there were student protests, there was like uprising in the streets, and people were starting to be detained and arrested and forced to give confessions. And so this man named Iman, he becomes an inspector judge who is uh like effectively prosecuting and like and enforcing the law on people, even though they may not actually be guilty of any crimes. And the bulk of the movie follows the consequences of him moving into this new position alongside his family, because he's got two young daughters and a wife who's very devoted to him and to his career, but his daughters are younger. One of them's 21, the other's like 15, somewhere around there. And so they're of like school and college age, and it's about the family dynamic that comes as a result of the generation gap, as well as witnessing what this new movement means for women in in their country. And it starts to do it sticks as a family drama for a lot of it, but then it starts to turn into some tense moments as sort of a thriller. uh More, maybe not a thriller, but more of a suspense, because there's something that happens, something is stolen that creates a huge problem. And then legitimately the last like 45 minutes of this movie turns into, I would almost describe it as a horror movie in
Ooh.
one of the most deeply unsettling, like, domestic ways imaginable. And there's just so much intensity to it. and so much went into it being able to be made at all. Like the raw footage had to be smuggled out of the country after the
Damn.
guy fled. Like he had to leave it behind, and it had to follow him to Germany before it could even be wrapped in post production. So the story of getting this movie made is crazy. The movie itself is just like, it's just so riveting. At times it is very hard to watch, but yeah, it is just one of the crazier stories of a movie, and one of the more just intense things that you will watch from last year. I was extremely happy that I was able to get out and see it, and it is in my top 10. It is number 8.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things, definitely, like, from your review. I'm definitely like, I wanna see it. It's just, again, every single good movie is, like, out right now.
Yes, yes,
Like, that's
yes,
part of the reason why I saw September 5. Like, there were other Oscar-nominated movies that I probably could have seen, but I was like, now I'm at the
yeah.
point where just I wanna watch what, like, interests me, but, like, definitely, like, I've heard nothing but great things about that. I'm definitely excited to see Seed of a Sacred Fig. Um, hopefully I will soon. My number 8, we've already talked about it. It was kind of alluded, kind of has very similar vibes to September 5, and that's Saturday Night.
Mhm.
You talked about how Wicked is kind of important to you and your now wife. The very first date that I took my now wife to see was Juno, when we were in college. I love Jason Reitman. Like, even outside of Juno, like, his first 4 films to me are fucking incredible. He starts off with Thank You for Smoking, and then I think he goes Juno, Up in the Air, Young Adult. And
Mhm.
even Young Adult, which is a film, like, I absolutely fucking love that movie. That's a film that I feel like, because I think Reitman kind of pissed off Academy members after his Up in the Air campaign or something. I don't know. I love his first 4 movies. Then I think he kind of fell off. Then he started doing like Ghostbusters because of his dad. And to me, he's fucking back, baby. Jason Reitman's back. I thought he shot the hell out of Saturday Night. His
Mhm.
frenetic filmmaking, his oneers in that movie to help with, like, they're not oneers for the sake of oneers, which when they're done well, are always cool to me. They're always like catnip for like film bros like us. But like, to add to the pacing and that frenetic feel that adds to the story, I just thought, like, this movie is incredible. Like, the filmmaking alone is so good. Um, it's a fictionalized version of the hour and a half leading up to the very first episode of Saturday Night Live, I think then called Saturday Night. Um, I loved Saturday Night Live. I'm not like a huge, like, there are definitely, I see on the internet, like, people bigger fans than me, but to me, I love the allusions to like all the stuff in the
Yeah.
very first episode. Like, you talked about Andy Kaufman, like, he has his famous Mighty Mouse bit,
Yeah.
um, that they show. There's like little bits and pieces of like the actual scenes that they do. And I thought the casting was absolutely incredible. Gabriel LaBelle's having like an awesome year. Like, his first 3 movies, um, of The Fableman, Snack Shack, and this, I think, are like, damn, like, good on you, bro. I don't think Lorne
Mhm.
Michaels was ever as jacked as Gabriel LaBelle is, but like, I thought he did an excellent job. There's like not a whole lot of names like J.K. Simmons and William Defoe, who our names pop in. J.K.
Yeah.
Simmons like pops in for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, damn, give this man an Oscar. Like, give him another one. I thought he was incredible as I think Milton Berle he plays.
Yeah.
Um, and it is like, again, I saw it. I've seen it twice. I saw it once in the theater. I saw it again now that it's on Netflix, and I highly recommend. Like, it held up for me on second viewing. I think the actors that they got to play, especially the male leads of Belushi, Chevy Chase, and Dan Aykroyd,
Mhm.
um, just like fucking nailed it. And there's just like it's like that little bit of like early P.T. Anderson of just like you get a scene here, like just little bits and pieces. And like, I read criticism, it's like, why are we lionizing Saturday Night Live? I'm like, man, one of my favorite movies is the lionization of an early 2000s like baseball team that failed. Like, who cares? Like, we're gonna do this for setting like an institution that's like literally holding a huge 50-year bash. Like, it's okay to lionize that. Like
Yeah,
we've
man.
done it as a society. I found that criticism absolutely dumb. I will say I think the shorts they give a little bit of short shrift to the female cast members, and the Lamorne Morris, his character, subplot is kind of but like overall, it's just like minor quibbles to what I think is like a really astounding, well done film. And like as
Yeah.
like I alluded to before, like I really wish this got more award attention, and they tried, and it just failed. And I get it, but I just like I really adore this film. It really cemented it for me on my second watch. And again, everyone has Netflix now. Go watch it. I think it's well worth your time. And I think even if you don't like Saturday Night Live, I've heard from people who like, I don't love it. I think it's so well made. It's just great
Yeah.
filmmaking that I think you're going to enjoy it in and of itself.
Yeah, the production value is incredible. And the only I talked about Saturday Night before, but I'll so the one thing I'll add is that I intentionally went out, and when I saw it, it was on the actual 50th anniversary. I saw it in theaters on October 11th.
Yeah, it's just like I think I saw it just a little bit later, but I was like, man, it's I think it sucks that like I don't think the actual Lauren Michaels gave his blessing for the film, and I think that hurt it too. But I was like, this is
Mm.
like the perfect time to release this movie on literally the 50th anniversary. Like,
Yep.
I have so much love and affection for that movie, and I hope Jason Reitman, like, it's tough because like when your movie is both critically and commercially panned, like it's a little bit tougher in this business. But like, I really hope like he builds off this creatively because I haven't enjoyed the period between Young Adult and Saturday Night. And I think Men,
Hmm.
Women, and Children, his film with Adam Sandler, is just like absolute dog trash. I think it's awful. Um, I think the front runners are actually kind of okay, but like give me more films like that are just like so much intention behind it. Like I said,
Yeah, I love Up in the Air and Thank You for Smoking. Those are awesome.
they're give me I hope Jason Reitman gets more chances. Like I said, I have so much love and affection for Saturday Night.
Yeah.
So what's your number? That was my number 8. So what's your number 7?
So my number 7, I have a little bit of a run here, of a running theme of movies where the title is just a woman's name. So there's an interesting tease. Number 7, I have Amelia Perez. No, I'm kidding.
Really? You like? Oh, okay.
No,
Thank
no,
God.
no, no. But you're gonna push me a little bit though. My number 7 is Honora.
Oh, okay. I will say I am both. I have a lot of love for a lot of it, and I'm also the weird one who is like, I probably should have this in my top 10. But why don't you speak on it? I'll let you because you are clearly much higher on it than I am.
Yeah, so really it comes down to this. As we know, so Sean Baker's thing is like the downtrodden like people of society.
The
And
downtrodden streetwalker.
yeah, in this sense, yeah, they're like very much. And he just sheds a light on that, which is just very unflinching, and it stays fresh even though he's done it a couple of times now. Um, but it's got a slowly building sense of social commentary that I appreciate the hell out of. It's got just unbelievably sharp and well timed humor. Um, the description that is most apt to it is Cinderella meets Uncut Gems, which is just
Yeah,
like an amazing pitch for a movie. And I saw it in a full theater, one of the best viewing experiences of the year. It held up. Uh, Mikey Madison was just awesome. The rest of the
phenomenal.
supporting cast that around her, I'm just like, everybody here is just operating on like like the highest level, and the situations that they found themselves in throughout this thing were just so ridiculous, and they just kept on going, but it never was just like, okay, get on with it. At least for me it was not. And it all amounted to this amazing, like, all of these people are just dragging themselves through hell for the sake of somebody who like would not spit on them if they were on fire. You know what I mean? Like so so yeah, it just so memorable, and it's sad that it was this front runner for so much of the year, and when push came to shove, like it was getting outed by the brutalist and it was getting overlooked by Amelia Perez, and like it's not it was for a hot minute it was like, oh, this is going to be the front runner for best actress, but I think that this this isn't going to end up being Sean Baker's like kick down the door movie, even though it's such a it's such a mainstream establisher that you get to be so excited about what he's going to do next.
Yeah, I think so. When I was watching the movie, I heard like it was good, and like Sean Baker and Mikey Madison, like, and it's gonna get Best Picture nominations. And when Yuri Borisov's character shows up, and like the subversion of expectations, like
Mm-hmm.
when he first shows up, and that and, like the best scene in the film for me is the attack on that house scene where when he first
Mm-hmm.
shows up. Um, and like I was like, man, I know Mikey Madison is incredible. One of my favorite performances of the year. Like she deserves her nominations, she deserves her flowers. But this guy over here on the side, I'm like, this guy's really good too. And I kind of think everyone else who saw the movie agreed because he ended up getting a whole bunch of nominations, including an Oscar
Uh-huh.
nomination that I think is well deserved. And for me, I have a hard time like enjoying performances if I don't like the movie. And even though I'm not as high on Honora, I think it's a testament to how good Borisov and Mikey Madison, who plays the titular Honora, like absolutely incredible. Like Mikey Madison, like to me, she's still like if I had an Oscar vote, I'd vote for her for Best Actress.
Yeah.
All really known for like the end of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is her star-making performance. It is weird that like normally like this is the type of performance that wins you Oscars, like that ingenue, like leading blows you off the screen. And no, it's going to be no disrespect to Demi Moore and who's like great in The Substance as well, but this film has a lot going for it. And like I said, I think I'm the weird one. It's just like I love the Florida Project so much. I love Red Rocket so much, which is his prior two films. And like maybe this is like on me, and I think we've talked about this privately of just like the expectations of like
Mm-hmm.
this is Sean Baker's coming out party, and it's good. To me, it's just like I just like the Florida Project and Red Rocket more, and I think that's honestly like a me problem more than like anything. Like I'm the weird one who like maybe I should give it another chance. But like I said, that middle section, like when your Bursoff shows up, I think up till when they're searching to New York, I think once when they meet the kid again, I think is like that second act of the movie to me is just like I love this movie. And then it just felt like for me, and no one else agrees with me on this, so I get it. I'm in the wrong. It just okay. Now it's kind of dragging. They're in the courthouse.
Yeah.
They're talking. It's like, oh, you got to go to Vegas, and it's like okay, let's move it along here. That's why that's like the only reason it's like not in. But like there's clearly a lot to like. I'm glad Sean Baker as a filmmaker is like getting his respects. He has been slowly like getting more. Like literally 4 films ago, he was literally shooting movies on iPhones, and like now he's got a much bigger budget and it's paid off because it's I think slowly chugging along, making a little bit of money. He's clearly got a lot of awards. Like I know it's like only like 6, but I think it's like in all awesome categories. And
Yeah.
like yeah, it's like especially if it's like between Bruto, Sonora, and Amelia Perez, I'm all for like Honora winning. You're right, I don't think it is. I think for some reason it ran out of steam, but
Yeah.
there's a lot to like about Honora, and it's you're probably right having it in the top 10, and I'm the weird one not. So my next 2 films, my 7 and 6, we'll do my number 7 for they are both animated films, and
Mm.
I like animated films a lot. It's when obviously when it's done well, and I'm pretty sure this movie has grossed the most amount of money in 2024. That's Inside Out 2. Um, I'm a sucker for Pixar. I think Inside Out is a top 5 Pixar movie. And even though it's done from a different director, this one done by Kelsey Mann, excuse me. Just like the next progression, like a young girl's growth and journey, I just thought was done so well. It does all the cliche Pixar things, and fuck it, they work on me. Um, I wish I had seen it in theaters and I didn't, and but like it still worked on me. It's just like that little things of it just has so much heart and so much soul and like so much respect for its audience. Like even though they're young kids, um, just the new emotions, like just adding anxieties, and especially voiced by Maya
Hmm.
Hawke, was such like an ingenious new addition to this. Um, and again, I don't really need to talk more about the movie that literally grossed like over $1 billion
Hmm.
from the biggest like studios in America, but like loved Inside Out too. It just when Pixar is like on their in their bag, that's just like again straight of fate to right into my veins. I love it.
Yeah, I love Inside Out, and I really enjoyed Inside Out too as well. I loved Ennui. That was my favorite, one of the new
Yeah,
ones. And I love they made her French and like she doesn't care and she has like little remote things. So like that's the movie. I was just like, okay, this is a little too much of a retread of the first one, plot wise. That was why I didn't like love it. But yeah, I'm definitely down for Inside Out 3 whenever they decide to do that. So yeah, it was good.
like I said, you're 100% right. From like it's basically just like, oh, these characters have to go through a journey, and here's some like brain puns, like the sarcasm.
Hmm.
And you know what? I don't care, man. When you have like this much like heart and soul and like care for these characters and this story, um, that shit works on me. All right, we are
Yeah,
on
man.
to 6 for you.
So my number six, continuing my female name trend, my number six is Abigail.
I don't think I'm familiar with this.
You might be, and you probably don't recognize it. It's the one where the little ballerina girl is a vampire.
That came out last year.
It did.
Damn, a lot of movies coming out.
So I just had a ton of fun. So Abigail is the people who made Ready or Not. If you saw that, uh,
I heard good things, but it's
Ready or
missed me.
Not is just a ton of fun, and Abigail is similarly styled, similar in it being like all in a big like spooky mansion. But like you have this little girl, she just knocks out of the park with the performance. Alicia Weir is her name, the actress's name, and it's just got like you mentioned Kevin Durand, who you love. He's in this.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
Dan Stevens, Dan Stevens, Hive, Rise Up.
Oh, this is
He,
it starts off as like a heist or bank robbery,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it's like a kidnapping, and then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
I have heard of this.
just this movie rules. Like it's so good. It's so fun. It's like there's so many funny parts of it. Like the house that they're stuck in is just like super cool. Very like Agatha Christie like feeling of that, but it's got some like gnarly vampiring in it. Like it's just man, like you get exactly what you signed up for with this one, and you'll just sit back and enjoy the show. It's so good.
I think this is also like this came out in the summer, I believe, right?
Late spring, like
Late
April.
spring, yeah. Yeah, it's just there's been a lot of good movies, man. I'll have to check it out.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, for sure.
my number 6 is my other animated movie, and that is The Wild Robot.
Hmm.
Um, and honestly, this was like number one for like when I was watching it. Like, I took my son to the theater. He'd already seen it, loves it. Went to see it again. I went with his mom the first time, me the second time. And throughout most of this movie, I'm like, this is my favorite film of the year. And there's a really dumb third act fight scene that I was like, ah, fuck you. What are you doing, man? You were so brilliant and so smart that it just like it dropped it down a little bit. I mean, still top 10, but like when it's basically Lupita Nyong'o's Wild Robot and Pedro Pascal's Fox like raising this duckling, I'm like, oh man, this is just I know it's based on a book, but it's like, okay, we have basically an original story that has like all these really warm and smart themes of like motherhood and conservation, and it's just like for so much of the movie, it's just like, fuck, man, this is like why we have animated films where again, it's like when Pixar's in its best. I know it's not Pixar's Universal film, but it's like it respects his audience and it's like purposefully like has something to say and it can appeal to both my 7-year-old and his 37-year-old father. I'm like, I love it. And again, it's that third act, like I just have such fundamental problems with like things go boom as like
Yeah.
your grand finale, and it's like, oh come on, you were so smart and warm and loving and had so much to say before this, and then it also like doesn't even make sense structurally because I mean not to spoil it, but then like literally doesn't even make sense plot wise why the big boom went boom, and it's like so that's why like it dropped from 1 to 6,
Yeah.
but it's also gorgeously animated. I think now we're in a post Pixar, post Spider Verse world where not everything has to look so clean cut.
Hmm.
And I wonder if it's like specifically taken from the artworks of these books, but I just think it looks great. And again, when animated movies work and they're like this, I love it.
Yeah, we saw the Wild Robot too. I enjoyed the hell out of it. It didn't crack my list, but like the a lot of very dark humor in it,
Yeah.
like especially surrounding like some of the animal mortality. Like that was like shocking, honestly. But an extremely memorable movie. I'm rooting for it for the Oscar. Like it's good.
Yeah, I still need I don't know if it's gonna come up. I still need to see Flow because I've heard such good things about it.
Mm,
But yeah, there's so many friggin' movies out. Oh, excuse me. All right,
yeah.
we are now really hitting the home stretch. We're in the top five. What is your number five film of 2024?
My number five is probably the most obscure movie on this list. I saw this in February of last year, and it just stayed with me and never ever did it like fall out of my top 10 at any point. It is a little movie called Scrambled.
Yeah,
It
I
is
don't think I'm
about
familiar with that.
a so it is written and directed and starring a young comedian named Leah McKendrick,
Hmm.
and she plays a woman who's in her mid 30s who is not married and got a ton of ex-boyfriends who it didn't work out with, and she's seeing her friends get married around her and start to have kids, and she decides that she wants to freeze her eggs. And the movie is about her going through the physiological stuff that she needs to be able to freeze her eggs, and at the same time she starts reassessing her previous romances, and it involves some very interesting run-ins with a lot of her exes, some of whom are also single, some of whom have moved on, and it just she's got this amazing voice. What I see in a lot of like female driven comedies is that they try to like break through the glass ceiling specifically by going for just like much more gross out humor, and it leads to like a certain level of overcompensation that I don't care for. Like Sarah Silverman is a good example of that. Um,
Yeah.
and this like it's just so like the script is just very very funny and clever, and she as an actress is so endearing. I loved watching her in this. She was so just like like funny and exuberant and just like a good like voice for sarcasm, which is something I always love in like a good main character is like they've got that sarcasm that you don't get tired of, like your Peter Venkman kind of character, like they have the heart of gold, and it's just a very funny movie about a easy to relate to topic. And I'm somebody in my 30s and I don't have kids yet, even though I want them. And it's you watch it and it's just like, man, does this movie hit home? So that is called Scrambled. I did not check to see if it was streaming anywhere, but if you get a chance to check that one out, like I just enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it. Like I said, pretty obscure, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um, my number five film, it comes from a director who's coming off of a pretty decently big film, got a whole bunch of Oscar nominations. He himself was nominated for Best Director. His star won the Academy Award. Emma Stone teams up with her again, Yorgos Lanthimos, for Kinds of Kindness. And I get it. It's not only is Lanthimos a pretty weird director, even though he's coming off of a pretty mainstream movie, but this is an anthology movie where it's three separate stories. They all star Hong Chow, William Dafoe, um, Jesse Plemons, and Emma Stone in some way. And I think Joe Alwyn, who shows up in The Brutalist, um, Mr. Former Taylor Swift. And it's just Lanthimos is such a weird director that like I would never show a Lanthimos film to like my wife or like my parents. I'm like, he's just a little bit too weird, but he's like right on my wavelength. I like talked about this when we were talking about Poor Things last year, where he's so weird, but like he's just so finely tuned that like him and I are on the same page, and the stories don't like necessarily interconnect plot wise, but they just work thematically. And he's just like, even if this like feels like a filler movie almost, like when he wants to do his next project, I think his next project is like an Emma Stone project too. Of just like,
Wouldn't surprise
again,
me.
I get it why an anthology series from like a weird director dropped in the middle of the summer isn't getting Oscar nominations, but at the same time, this is a guy that the Academy clearly loves, and just as feels like it's just like it came and went. Um, and it's probably my favorite Lanthimos film since Dogtooth, which, you know, like it's probably then my favorite English language Yorgos Lanthimos film. You know, he did The Favorite, The Lobster, and Killing of a Sacred Deer, and Poor Things. And I have affinity for all of those. And he's just a guy who every time he makes a movie, I'm like going to go to the theater. This came out technically the same weekend as The Bike Riders.
Hmm.
Like on the schedule, we were talking about this, like, oh, what am I going to see? And then it turns out, oh, I'm seeing The Bike Riders because no friggin' film in my area wants to show Kinds of Kindness till 2 weeks later. So I saw both, and I like The Bike Riders too. But it's just like he's a guy who, like, when I have to make the decision, like clearly The Bike Riders was the bigger film and it had Austin Butler in it and stuff. But it's like if I like had to make that choice between like, oh, the bigger indie movie of the year or Yorgos Lanthimos, like my choice, like I'm going to choose the Lanthimos because he's just,
Hmm.
I absolutely love what he has to say. I love how he films movies. I love his stories. And, you know, in a just world, I think Jesse Plemons would be up for best actor because I think he does an incredible job in these stories, like in his own weird Jesse Plemons way. He's like him and Stone are just like the perfect vessels for what Yorgos Lanthimos wants to do. And I don't even know if it's streaming, but I absolutely love that. Love Kinds of Kindness.
So uh, I'll go ahead and take this opportunity to say uh, we have not reached Kinds of Kindness on my list yet. Uh,
Ooh,
I I was super into this movie too. Um, I am right there with you on the Jesse Plemons like Oscar snub because I was calling for that as soon as I saw this. I think I saw it in June, and I was like, he is so freaking good in this. Like he's absolutely like obviously everybody talks about like it's Yorgos and Emma and Yorgos like that like that's like the dynamic duo, but like Clemens was so just out of this world in this movie. Like playing all the different characters. That middle one where he's like the suspecting husband because his wife came back. Like and that the scene where he makes them watch the video is just like insane.
I was
But
just thinking the same thing.
I
Like, got an audible laugh from like an uncomfortable laugh from like the three other people in the theater.
yes, like just like so just note perfect that scene was. But if there's one complaint I would lodge them against this movie, it's that the opening vignette, I was like, I just want to see this entire movie. Like I was like, I need to see more of what is going on here. The one where Willem Dafoe is like the boss, where and like he just like is controlling his entire life, and he's like making him do
Oh,
stuff.
the first story.
Yeah, the first story. Like
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, I want to see this entire movie. Like I would like when that ended and didn't go, I was just like, oh my god, like I want to know like more about this. But yeah, I was big time high on Kinds of Kindness. So yeah, yeah.
All right, so that was my number 5. What's your number 4?
Uh, you shouted out my number four, but not in a great way.
Oh
Uh,
no.
my number four is A Different Man.
Oh, that and okay. I speak on it, and let me justify myself.
No, you go ahead and justify before I
So
go jump in.
my problem with it is like not in anything of the story. It's just because Sebastian Stan's character is physically deformed and such, like an elephant man, gross. Like
Mm-hmm.
it deserved its uh sole nomination for hair and makeup because it was so pitch perfect on him that I have such a visceral reaction that I just get uncomfortable and like had a I like when I first saw it I like had to stop it because I was just like there's just something about like again it's that David Lynchian
Mm-hmm.
Elephant
Yeah,
Man where it's just like you did exactly what you set out for. It just makes me so deeply uncomfortable that like I had a hard time powering through. So it's nothing against like the film in and of itself because
sure.
it's just like again, it's a little bit of it's on like a side tangent, like body horror of just like, oh, this just makes me so uncomfortable. I don't want to rip my eyes out.
It's almost like reverse body horror
Yeah.
because he's like he gets better and his life just falls apart. And I loved the dark humor of this. Like everything about the tone and the vibe just worked for me. Um, Sebastian Stan, I was just lukewarm on The Apprentice. I did not think it was great, but I thought he was like just a very very convincing performance in it. Um, but I thought that his Oscar nomination should have come for this movie. He was so freaking good in this movie. Uh,
I also will say is I feel like Academy voters are like giving him the nomination for both, even though it's technically for The Apprentice. But I
Right,
get what
and
you're saying.
A Different Man, he won the Golden Globe, but like and then he's get to the Oscar nomination for The Apprentice. Like it's like
Yeah.
a kind of thing. But it's just awesome seeing him get the have such a good showing this award season. And this movie was so good. Like I like just so like surreal and cerebral and like he just obviously he's unrecognizable, but like he plays and you've seen this in a bunch of movies now. He plays a scumbag just so good. Like he's such a good scumbag. And in this one, like you feel bad for him, but also you're just like you're kind of an asshole, you know? So like I did the darkness to it. I don't always enjoy dark comedies, but there were a couple of them this year, and this is one of them that it's just like, man, does this rule? So yeah, I
Yeah.
was super into a different man.
Really appreciate Sebastian Stan. Like, he doesn't need the money anymore. He can just be doing these like Marvel shows
Hmm.
and movies for the rest of his life and be comfortable. And just one of the few like guys like taking real risks with indie filmmakers to try to leverage his fame and stardom to like get these interesting projects made. And obviously The Apprentice, like I thought he was absolutely incredible in The Apprentice. I actually weirdly liked The Apprentice more than A Different Man. And like I hate myself that I do. That's like a totally different subject, but like him, like I thought purposely not doing the Trump voice, but getting the mannerisms down perfectly and trying to imbue humanity in this character, which does not deserve humanity in hindsight. But clearly, just like between A Different Man and The Apprentice, like incredible 2024 from him.
Yeah, big time.
Um, yeah, great. Again, it's a great choice. It's just it has nothing about the movie. It's like my relationship to movies and like humanity that I had a problem with A Different Man
Yeah,
because it
no,
did
I
such a
hear you.
great job like trying to doing what it did. Um, my number four is technically a Netflix movie, but to its credit, it went out and bought it at TIFF last year. And to me, if I had my say, this would be the movie that Netflix would push for Best Picture instead of Amelia Perez. And that is Anna Kendrick's Woman of the Hour.
Mm,
Um, this is so I was listening to an interview and like Anna Kendrick signed on and the director like at the 11th hour dropped out. So she's like, "Oh, I spent so much fucking time trying to put this movie together. You can either spend another year trying to find another director or like fuck it, I'll do it." And for her to just like kind of step into this project and to have such a mastery of this genre, I thought was absolutely incredible. Um, it's a little bit pejoratively like the female zodiac, and I do see that in a
mm,
sense, but it's about kind of in and of its core, it's about this time a serial killer went on the dating show in the 70s and Anna Kendrick and pairs up with Anna Kendrick's character. Um, like really, it's just like about being a woman in the world and how scary it can
yeah.
be. And I think that's like what Anna Kendrick can bring to the project. There's a moment she's a aspiring actress, which is why she eventually goes on the dating show, but she's in an audition and these two dudes are like, will you who are like the casting directors apparently, and are like, will you do topless? And her character's like, no. And he's like, oh, it's okay. Like I'm butchering it, but it's like very derogatory against her. And it's like Anna Kendrick just like pulled that from like a real life audition that she had. Um, and like every movie, like she purposely casts Pete Holmes as like her neighbor, who's like the nicest guy
Mm,
in the world, and like to be a creep. And Tony Hale is like gives an amazing performance as the host of the dating show. But ultimately, I just think her mastery of like building tension. Like there's a point after, I mean, because it's pretty hard to, it's not hard to guess that she matches with the serial killer and they go on a date right after.
mhm,
And just like the tension that she builds in that scene, I'm like, this is from an experienced filmmaker, and the fact that you're doing it and you kind of like she definitely cared about her craft, but like I feel like if you looked at Anna Kendrick's public perspective and like the movie roles that she's taken, like I would never have expected that like this is her first directorial choice. And the guy who plays the serial killer, I'm sorry, I don't have his name in front of me. He's like, it's a thankless role, but he does such a great job as both being the super charming, charismatic guy and the worst person in the world because he's a fucking serial killer of vulnerable women. And I just thought it was incredibly well done. Uh, and it has such a point of view. And I feel like everyone who sees this movie likes it. It was number one on Netflix algorithm for like a long
yeah.
time. And partially it's because it's got that true crime aspect, which is I get why they wanted to buy it to begin with. But I just thought Kendrick did such a goddamn good job directing it for a film that like I feel like Netflix was like, oh yeah, here's a you like these true crime docs, here's a true crime movie. And I just think it's so much better than that. And I have a lot of time for it. I really enjoyed it. I should say that enjoyed is like the wrong word because it's again about a serial killer, but I respect it so much that like I love it.
Yeah, this one I did not get to this one, so I have to add that to my list as well.
Oh, I sort of spoiled a plot point, but also like I feel like you could have guessed it.
Hmm.
And it's just
But
like little like there's like
yeah,
moments of like how women like not communicate with each other, and just like again, it's all about being like how scary it can be to be a woman in the world, and I just incredible job I thought she did. And I get why like this feels in some ways like an essential to the culture, especially around award season. And I just like I wish Netflix had pushed this because I hate Amelia Perez. And I love this movie.
yeah, man. Amelia Perez, like every day that goes by, it seems like they just like really screwed the pooch on that one.
God, if it wins Best Picture, man, I don't know what I'll do.
I
It's like
I I don't see that happening at this point. But
so
you
I
know,
hope so.
that's a different conversation.
All right. So Anna Kendrick's Woman of the Hour was my number 4. What's your number 3?
My number three is Kinds of Kindness. We can
Nice.
and I said what I had to say, and just uh all I'll add is that Willem Dafoe ended up being my most watched actor in last year
Such a great, I mean, the guy's
for
always
my
a great
letterbox
actor,
stats.
but I mean, Nosferatu, Kinds
It's
of
one
Kindness,
that
Saturday Night.
Nosferatu, Kinds of Kindness, Saturday Night, Beetlejuice, uh uh what else did he pop up in? Just other stuff, man. But like just what a great guy. Like what a great actor. And he's just like commits to everything. Like I love Willem Dafoe, man. So
I get another
yeah, Kinds of Kindness, my number three.
another guy that just feels like him and Yorgos can be on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
I'm glad you like Kinds of Kindness because I just feel like nobody has seen that movie.
It came and went, and people talked about it like especially for a bit, and I was like, it's so interesting because it's like really grounded sci-fi. I kind of talked about this with my old ass too. It's where like they take these like high concept like sci-fi deals, but they treat it in just a very plain way. It's just like in plain sight kind of stuff, like especially the middle vignette, and in some ways the end vignette too. It's just got these very like weirdo, bizarre, like almost Twilight Zone like ness to it, where it's like just very plain looking, but it's like dealing with some really high level stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that. Love Kinds of Kindness. Maybe it should
Hmm.
be higher on my list. My that was your number 3. My number 3 is the only film nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars to make my top 24, and that's Dune Part 2. Um, I like wasn't even a fan of Dune Part 1. Um, and I just thought like the rest of the country, the rest of the world when we saw Dune Part 2, like this movie's fucking great. Like Villeneuve, like to bring such artistry, like I ended up watching a bunch of Villeneuve before I went into Dune Part 2. Like I gave Part 1 another chance and I was like, no, I don't like this. But like weirdly, I didn't like Prisoners the first time I saw it, and then I saw it again. I was like, oh, this movie's fucking great. It's Villeneuve.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of Sicario when I first saw it, and I saw it again. I was like, oh, this is Villeneuve. This movie's fucking great. And I've always like we mentioned it briefly. I've always loved The Rival, but then it's like, dude, like to bring it feels like Star Wars esque, like this auteur doing such smart original things with hard sci-fi.
Hmm.
It's just this movie on every single level is so fucking good. It's like not only like his direction and the acting, but like the special, like the very first scene,
Hmm.
the dudes are floating down. I'm like, what the? This is
Yeah.
incredible. Um,
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer with his score, just like another banger. It's just like everyone is working at the highest level possible to create like this is the type of like mass market franchise filmmaking I want to see, where yeah, it's based on a super popular hard sci-fi book, but it's Dennis fucking Villeneuve doing it. So it's
Yeah.
fucking incredible. Like every aspect of this is so good. And it just, I listen to so many movie podcasts that talk about the Oscars. And, it just felt like, it just seems like the consensus from what I'm getting is like, oh, we'll give Villeneuve his flowers for Dune Messiah because there's going to be a third one. And I'm like, that's stupid. Like, this movie is great. It's okay to honor its greatness right now. And also, it's not really a trilogy. It's just he didn't want to compress and like miss things like David Lynch did with his Dune. He just wanted
Yeah.
to tell the story right. And it takes it takes two movies, and I'm glad he did it in two movies, even though I'm not a big fan of the first one, because he's just trying to do the story right. It's not the same thing as like the Lord of the Rings that is each doing like a different book. Just I can go on and on. I thought it's absolutely insane. Villeneuve, like, it got Best Picture to its credit, like, thank goodness, but like he deserves Best Director too, like he did the first time. Like, it's okay to be in a world where we're honoring big budget blockbusters done by guys who put like real thought and artistry into it. Like, this isn't a Marvel movie, guys. This is fucking Villeneuve doing Dune. Give him Best Director. Like, to me, it's like, and my number two, like, also I think should have gotten, Best Picture too. But it's just like, I feel like in Will Ferrell and Zoolander, like, I'm taking crazy pills. Like, why is nobody respecting Dune? Like, what are we doing, guys?
Yeah, I'm with you. All I'll say for now is that it could be that he is on the Peter Jackson track where he got the Best Picture, Best Director nomination for Fellowship, Best Picture, but no Best Director for Two Towers, and then Best Picture and one Best Director for Return of the King.
I think like that's the thinking in Hollywood, and like from what I hear, like Dune Messiah is like so much weirder. I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And also it bugs me in the sense of like I hate that logic, because what if Dune Messiah, which is also like kind of separate and weird, isn't what you expect? Like, why are we waiting to honor you when this is an open year anyway? I think this movie's awesome. Like, and if Dune Messiah is great, okay. Like, Godfather 1 and 2 both got like Oscar wins. Like, I hate that logic, because you're hoping, and it's a Villeneuve film, so right, the floor on Dune Messiah is going to be super high no matter what. But what if it's not as good as Dune Part 2? You can't go back and say, oh, we're going to steal Brady Corbett's Oscar and give it to you. I mean, like, just give it to him.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that.
Like, I hope he gets his Oscar, for Messiah or whatever, because Villeneuve's an amazing director.
Yeah, he is. Are we on my number two?
Yes.
Okay, well, we can wrap this up then, because my number two is Dune Part 2.
Okay. As I was talking and ranting, I was like, shit, he hasn't said Dune yet. I hope it's high.
No, it's number two, and it's just one of those that just couldn't be denied. It's like, you're right. I saw it twice in theaters. It's just unbelievable sci-fi filmmaking brought to life. I definitely love it more than the first one. I would say that it was a mistake for me to see the David Lynch movie for the first time right before going to see Dune back in 2021. I re-watched Dune for the first time when it got re-released in IMAX right before the new one. And I liked that more than when I had seen it before, just because I was so like, okay, well, I know what happens. And at the end, I was like, oh, well, at least we get to see like the sandworm ride here. And we didn't even get that. So I was just like a little underwhelmed by the first one at the time. But like watching the new one, I'm just like set piece after set piece. And the entire cast is amazing. I adore Rebecca Ferguson. So like all of Dune Part 2 was just like amazing. And then the ending, just like all of that, just like breathlessness, and then the showdown that it's setting up. Like, yeah, I can't wait for Dune Messiah. Give it to me.
It sucks that it's also, I feel like it's also getting hurt by the fact that it was released so early in the year.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like it. I again, I can go on and on about how I think people are like the Academy and awards voters are just being dumb about this movie because some honestly, this Doom could have
Yeah.
been like number one for me. Like it's just because I
Yeah.
have like emotional connection
It's
to
pretty
just
close.
my two and one, and obviously because it came out, it was like one for the longest time, and it's just like you can like flip my top four, top five maybe, but I think Doom Part Two is great. So going from a huge blockbuster to a tiny indie film, my number two is A Real Pain.
Mm.
Jesse Eisenberg's second film. Um, and I just part of it is like his last name is literally Kaplan. He's with his cousin after his grandma died, touring like Holocaust for like literally so many like actual plot points are like from my life. His cousin, played by Kieran Culkin, is like the exact relationship I had with my best friend growing up, where he's the type of guy where like I love him, but like shut your fucking mouth, you're really annoying. And I feel that tension of like everyone feels like what you're saying is inappropriate and it's like coming across on me. So like, but that's why like I have A Real Pain at number two is just because I had such emotional connection to the story. But like outside of that, I just think like it's a two-hander of Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin. And find it so funny that Justin Eisenberg, I heard him in an interview saying
Mm-hmm.
when he was writing it, he didn't know which character he'd be. I was like, bro, you're gonna be the awkward kind of fumbling dude that you play your entire career. You're great
Yeah.
at that.
Right.
Stick to your lane. But taking its title, like literally of multiple entendres of like both Kieran Coulter's character being a real pain in the ass, but also both those characters dealing with the trauma of their grandmother who recently passed, as well as they're going on this Holocaust trip like throughout Eastern Europe and like the end where they visit a concentration camp. I was like, Eisenberg purposefully like cuts all the music and the sound so it's like silent and like you really feel the weight of it, like really filming
Mm-hmm.
in Poland in these concentration camps. It's just it feels like a Sundance film in the best possible way. You know, the small two-hander
Mm-hmm.
indie, you know, like
Yeah.
in the beginning, I think like he got money from Poland, which is why he got to do it. And it's just it's an indie film that does so well, which like really works on me, but like again, the major plot points like really affected me. I would just walked out of the theater. It's like, man, that movie's fucking good.
I know.
Um,
It's it's very uncomfortable, but it's like you laugh in the right spots, and you feel it in the right spots, and it's just very, very good crafting and great acting, and it like really looks amazing. Like he did a great
yeah.
job directing it. Like, yeah, no, it's just a very, very solid overall entry that speaks to what we were talking about at the beginning, just like the very deep bench of this year.
All right. So before we go into our number ones, you want to recap our 2 through 10?
Yes, I do, but I'm going to add one uh little wrinkle. I forgot to mention one of my honorable mentions, which I'm going to go ahead and do now,
Well,
which
let's do it.
was the Return starring Ray Fiennes. And the main reason I'm shouting it out is because I was like, this is a really interesting take on the Odyssey, specifically the end of the Odyssey, and it works as a spiritual successor to the movie Troy, starring Brad Pitt.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
but it doesn't do what I've wanted something to do, which is bring Sean Bean back to play Odysseus again. However, we are getting Christopher Nolan's Odyssey
Yeah,
next
I was gonna
year,
say we're
and
gonna get a big budget Odyssey pretty soon.
I am about to go and drive down to the Indiana State IMAX 70 millimeter and just start waiting in line now. That's how excited I am for this.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
it's gonna be.
but the return is a cool little like take on just his return to Ithaca,
Oh,
and
nice.
and if you're like a Greek mythology head like me a little bit, that's worth checking out. But to recap my 10 through 2, I have Furiosa, Mad Max Saga, Wicked, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, Honora, Abigail, Scrambled, A Different Man, Kinds of Kindness, and Dune Part 2.
Nice. At number 10, I have Clint Eastwood's Juror number 2. At number 9, I have September 5. At 8, I have Jason Reitman's Saturday Night. At 7, I have Inside Out 2. At 6, I have The Wild Robot. At 5, I have Yorgos Lanthimos' Kinds of Kindness. At 4, I have Anna Kendrick's Woman of the Hour. At 3, I have Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2. And at 2, I have Jesse Eisenberg's Real Pain. All right, down to it. Final one. Colin, what is your favorite film of 2024?
My favorite film of 2024, the only film that I rated 5 stars this year, a maniacal little film called Hundreds of Beavers.
Ooh, I was not the biggest fan, but talk about it.
I just loved it, man. It was cracking me up the whole time. It was like people said it's like a live action Looney Tunes, which it is, but to me, what I loved about it, it was like live action Looney Tunes with a splash of Edge of Tomorrow, and how it's like a giant video game. I love that it was made in the Midwest. I love that it was so low budget. I love what they got away with and that it actually looks very good throughout. Like, I just love people who just make a movie, and it is so, so funny. It I was laughing nonstop. Like, just such a memorable experience. I begged them on Twitter to like get like more like local showings. They actually had one at the Music Box, and wouldn't you know it, like I couldn't go, but
Oh no.
I was like trumpeting this movie for the entire year. It is so freaking funny, and I just loved it. I absolutely loved it.
I may have to give it another chance because after that first musical number, I was like, I don't think I'm on this movie's wavelength. And then it kind of started with like I heard it was like a live action Looney Tunes, and then I was like, oh, this is an actual Looney Tunes bit that you're
Yeah.
doing. I thought you were just kind of using it as a reference point, but no, this is actual Looney Tunes. So it was not for me, I will say. But maybe I have to give it
And
another
that's okay.
chance.
It's not going to be for everybody, but I loved it.
Nice. All right, my number one is, I hate to say it's a Netflix movie, but fuck it if it didn't make me cry multiple times. This was the only film I ranked 4.5 stars. And that is a documentary called The Remarkable Life of Evelyn.
Ah.
Are you familiar with this?
So yes, I'm familiar. I had hoped to have watched it by now. I am planning on getting to it, but I've heard nothing but amazing things on this one.
Yeah. So for anyone who's not familiar, there is a kid, and I believe Sweden. I can't remember the specific Nordic country, unfortunately, but he was born with a muscular disorder that just basically caused his body to decay over time. So by the time he's in his teens, he's in a wheelchair, basically like succumb to the wheelchair, and he gets really into World of Warcraft. And I'm not spoiling to say this, but it starts off with his young untimely death, where I think he passes away at like early 20s. And his parents, for the longest time, like it's from their point of view of just like watching their son just kind of be distant and just kind of like he basically towards the end of his life was just succumbed to like he rented like not rented, he got the second floor of this house and just kept to himself playing World of Warcraft. And but he also kept the blog. And but like his parents, like it starts from their point of view of just like how he just like separated from them. So when he passed, they're like, oh, I guess he had a blog, and they posted on his blog of his passing. And what they come to realize is that he had this whole community that he'd been spending years and decades with in World of Warcraft. And this happens like towards the beginning. And first of all, the stories about him of people like they start getting like once the dad posts on the blog, just tons of emails pouring in from people who knew him from World of Warcraft, and like immediately it fucking gets me. I am just crying in my basement of just like this kid and like the amount of people that he touched. Um, and the movie explores, then gets into it explores his relationships to all these different people, and it also does something really, I think, spectacular as a documentary, just from like a structural and format standpoint. Is one of the guys in World of Warcraft like sent the dad who gave it to these filmmakers the actual code of World of Warcraft, of actual
Mm,
conversation and stuff he has. So as the film starts to go on, you actually start to feel like you're watching this video game. And like it just tells the story of this kid's life and like the people that he affected. And I don't want to get into too into it because like that's like the journey of
yeah,
this movie. Um, but the kid has like a major flaw, and you see that like flaw. Like this kid isn't perfect, even though he's handicapped, and you feel from him. There's also moments where you want to reach in the screen. It's just like, no, you know what the fucking saying. You're saying the wrong thing, and just the exploration of this kid's life, and told from the perspective of this like found family he had in World of Warcraft is fuck, man. Get your tissue, like keep your tissues there. It's the specific details just like really gets to you, and it got to me. I'm not I'm really like not a guy that like cries at movies a whole lot, and then to have like Iron Claw last year and then this movie, just it affected
yeah,
me so much. And like I said, it's not like enjoyable, like I don't necessarily like want to cry, but if a movie affects me this much and I have just such a deep connection to this story and this kid, and the filmmakers did such a great job doing that and did it in such a really smart way. I was like, well, you're going on top of my list. Uh, so it's a really remarkable documentary that you can stream now. The Remarkable Life of Evelyn.
yeah. No, that is definitely high up on my list to get to before I get too far into 2025. Um, all I'll say about it is that it hits close to home for me too because I had two of my best friends, one of them growing up and one of them from college. They both suffered from muscular dystrophy, and I lost both of them within about 7 months of each other.
Oof.
Uh, the year I got married. Uh, so yeah, just like the very idea of somebody who has this like vicarious life that like the family comes to discover is it just yeah it's I've heard very good things about this movie. You're not the first person I've heard sing its praises, so like yeah, I'm very interested in getting to that one.
Yeah,
So love seeing it on your list.
I have some personal experiences like that. Like I really think that this movie is like gonna fucking hit you like a ton of bricks.
Hmm.
Where again, it's not enjoyable in like per se. Like I have a lot of movies that are like fun blockbusters on my list. This isn't fun per se, but like it's really worth your time and really worth your watch. And it'll get you. I think it'll get you.
Did you see Crip Camp?
No, uh, first I know that was one thing where it got a lot of praises at that time, and it just that missed me too. But it's also like again, like I had to like force myself to sit down and see it in a way that I just couldn't for Crip Camp, because I'm like, you kind of sort of need to be in the right mind space, right? And I was like,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I would say try Crip Camp at some point, just because like the emotional payoff in that movie, like that it made my wife like sob. Like it's yeah, it just hits. That stuff just hits.
yeah, for sure. I'll have to check it out. You gave me lots of recommendations that I have to check out. Still got to check out
Yeah,
a
I
whole
know.
bunch of like
I
Oscar
gotta get a
stuff too.
copy. You gotta make sure you publish your list so I can bookmark all of yours too.
Dude, it's on. I have a letterbox list.
It's already that's oh, so it's already posted.
Yeah, I throughout the year I do a letterbox list, and like I fiddle with it throughout the year. So
Okay.
I got a whole list
I
of
keep
all
mine
my.
private until the end. But yeah. So
That's
okay,
probably
I'll
smart.
find your letterbox list.
All right. That is it. Our 24 favorite best films we enjoyed of 2024. Colin, I love talking movies with you. Thank you for doing with this me. We'll definitely have to do this again next year or this year.
25
Or
to 25, man.
25 of 25. Why don't you give out your socials? Where can we find you on Letterboxd and Blue Sky?
Blue Sky, I am C Hendershot, and Letterboxd, I am at Final Exposition. I am very, very active on Letterboxd. So it's you if you like to do reviews, you like to just have fun with it. I love reading like funny stuff on there. I love interacting with people. So if you get me on Letterboxd, I will get you back, and I'll be on there. And yeah, it's gonna be a fun year of movies for me. I'm doing a lot. I'm really ramping up my Best Picture project. I'm trying to watch all of the Best Picture nominees from history, or as many as possible, before the 100th Oscars, which is going to be in 2027.
Nice.
I'm logging that journey. I'm going through Letterbox 250, and just yeah, a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, if you're not following Colin on Letterboxd and you love movies, what are you doing? Your reviews are always great, insightful, thoughtful. Even if I don't always agree with you, I was like, man, that's a good fucking point. I love your reviews. You
Appreciate
put
you,
so
man. I
much more
love it.
time
Yeah.
into those sites. You can follow me. My former Twitter handle was Millennial Socks, so that's where you can find me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd as well. Again, love talking movies. Thank you so much. And it is late, so I'm going to get some sleep.
Yeah, me
Take
too.
care, Colin. All right, peace out.
Later, dude.
And stream.